Why China and the USA are so obsessed with Taiwan. Imagine a tiny island, roughly the size of the American state of Maryland, that has become the most dangerous flashpoint on Earth between two superpowers. China claims Taiwan as its own territory and insists it will reunify with the island by force, if necessary. Meanwhile, the United States has repeatedly said it is willing to defend Taiwan militarily if China attacks.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes, that's a commitment we made.
The United States is building up its military presence in the region.
This standoff shapes the future of the global economy, technology, and world peace. So why, out of all places on Earth, is Taiwan so important to both China and the US? Let's break it down. First, Taiwan is the heart of the Indo-Pacific. Taiwan sits in a location that every military strategist calls it irreplaceable. It controls key sea lanes, especially the Taiwan Strait, a narrow channel through which nearly all of East Asia's strait must flow. To the north is the Miyako Strait between Japan and Taiwan. To the south is the Bashi Strait between the Taiwan and the Philippines. Together, these waterways form strategic gateways to the Pacific Ocean. Whoever controls Taiwan controls access between major Asian economies, critical shipping routes in the wider Pacific. For China, if Taiwan were under another power's control, the continuity of the Chinese coastline would be interrupted, weakening access to the Pacific and giving foreign militaries an advantage. For the US, maintaining access and freedom of navigation here is central to alliances with Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, and other nations. Taiwan is not just land, it's a strategic choke point in global power dynamics. The microchip monopoly. Arguably, the biggest reason for today's obsession is semiconductors, the tiny computer chips that power everything from iPhones to fighter jets. Taiwan is home to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, the world's dominant chip maker. It produces more than 90% of the most advanced microchips used in cutting-edge technology, and over half of global semiconductor manufacturing capacity. These microchips are critical not just for smartphones and AI, but for modern defense systems, satellites, supercomputers, and autonomous weapons. They represent technological leadership and military power. Both China and the USA depend on Taiwan's chip industry. The US imports a huge share of its advanced chips from Taiwan, and the US companies rely on them for innovation and industrial production. China imports chips for its tech sector and is aggressively working to build its own domestic semiconductor industry to reduce that dependence. In 2026, Taiwan and the US signed a major trade deal that involves $250 billion in Taiwanese investment in US tech sectors, including semiconductors, AI, and clean energy, underscoring how vital Taiwan is to American economy and security. China's national identity and strategic goals. For the Chinese Communist Party, Taiwan is not only strategic, it's symbolic. Beijing considers Taiwan part of China's territory and asserts that it will not tolerate permanent independence. Leaders publicly state that Taiwan will be reunited with the mainland, and sometimes add that no one can stop this process. This claim is publicly embedded in China's political narrative and national identity. China views Taiwan's reunification as essential to completing its rise as a major world power. If China could take Taiwan, and with the Taiwan's semiconductor capacity and strategic sea lanes, it would dramatically shift the technological and economic balance in Beijing's favor. The US strategy and credibility. The United States doesn't formally recognize Taiwan as an independent country, but it still supports Taiwan with arms sales, political backing, and military cooperation. Why? Because Taipei sits at the core of Washington's broader Indo-Pacific strategy. If the US failed to prevent China from taking Taiwan by force, it would have serious consequences for America's credibility with its allies in Asia, from Japan to Australia to South Korea. The US sees Taiwan as a democratic partner and a key pillar in its effort to deter China's military expansion. Supporting Taiwan is part of upholding international norms, not just defending one island. Trade, economy, and global supply chains. Taiwan isn't just magnetically important for chips. It's a hub for global commerce. The island is deeply intertwined in supply chains that power the world's tech and electronics industries. Before 2025, bilateral trade between the US and Taiwan exceeded $100 billion, driven largely by high-tech goods like semiconductors. Taiwan's dominance in chip making also underpins global electronic supply chains, from consumer technology to automotive and medical equipment. Losing access to Taiwanese chips would disrupt global production and raise costs everywhere. The Silicon Shield, a paradox of protection. Some analysts describe Taiwan's chip industry as a silicon shield, a form of protection that makes war less likely because harming Taiwan would also destroy the global semiconductor supply chain. This dynamic gives Taiwan a kind of indispensability. Even China may be cautious about damaging the island's factories, because doing so could hurt China's own economy and tech access. But this shield has limits. China still sees reunification as a core goal, while the US sees Taiwan's economic and technological role as vital to its own future. The tech arms race and global power. Beyond geography and trade, the competition over Taiwan fits into a larger tech arms race between Beijing and Washington. China is investing heavily in AI and domestic chipmaking. The US is using legislation like the CHIPS Act to build more semiconductor capacity at home and reduce dependence on Taiwan. Tom's Hardware controls over advanced technologies more than business. It is national security. The side that leads in semiconductors, AI, and advanced communication systems is better positioned militarily and economically. What people in Taiwan think. The people of Taiwan live with the reality of both superpower rivalry, economic opportunity, global recognition, and constant military pressure. Taiwan is a democratic society with its own government, culture, and identity. Many Taiwanese want peace and economic growth, but they're also aware of the risks of escalation and conflict. So what does it all mean? Taiwan matters to China because it represents national unity and pride, command over critical sea lanes, a chance to control the world's most advanced semiconductor industry. Taiwan matters to the United States because it represents a strategic partner in an increasingly contested region, control over global technology supply chains, a test of American credibility and deterrence. And Taiwan matters to the world because it sits at the intersection of international technology, trade, and military power, all trapped into one island.